I've received a number of questions just about personal style and especially color palettes, just because it's something that I've brought up in the past. And I've kind of touched on it here and there, but haven't done a full-on deep dive, even though it's a strong interest of mine, because in my head, I'm like, well, this is a knitting and crochet channel. I shouldn't be talking about that. Screw that. I can talk about whatever I want. And this isn't like a huge shift in the channel. It's just a limited series. I don't know quite how many episodes it's going to be yet. I'm still writing it. I'm thinking between 4 and 6 episodes where I want to dive into personal style and my relationship to it and how I got to a place where I have cultivated a closet that I absolutely love and I never have to walk in and think, I have nothing to wear. That used to happen to me all the time, and it's been years since I've done that. And it's a good time to mention, I'm not trying to sell you anything here. I just want to share a system that works really well for me, and if it helps even one person, great. And it's really fun to talk about. This episode specifically will focus on color and color palettes. For the purposes of this video, a color palette is a physical collection of colors. I personally use mine as the tool to say every piece of clothing that I introduce to my wardrobe has to fit into this color palette. Obviously within reason. Just because black's not on my color palette doesn't mean I can never buy anything black ever. Most people don't have a tangible color palette. I would really challenge you to find someone in your life that actually does. But it surprises me when so many people struggle with the idea of color in their closet. It helps me make decisions when I'm unsure of what color to get if I find an article of clothing that I really like. For example, I had spent years trying to find the perfect everyday linen skirt. And I knew in my head what I wanted this linen skirt to look like. I knew what I wanted it to feel like, but I didn't know what color I wanted. And I finally found the one that I wanted. It was like perfect, just what I imagined. It was in my budget and it came in a bunch of different colors and I could not decide on what color to get. And I was like, oh, didn't I just create a color palette like literally a month ago? Checked on that, found there's only one color that is shared between my color palette and the colors of the skirts available, and I bought that one. And I wear it all the time. Having a color palette also helps me be more certain that when I introduce something to my closet, I'm actually going to wear it. It really prevents buyer remorse, and it's like a filter. It's a layer in a filter, and each episode that I make in this series is going to be another layer of that filter where you're having to consider all the clothing in the world, and you have to filter that down to what you actually like. No wonder people get so overwhelmed. But when you have established set layers of filtering, it gets really easy to decide and find what you actually want. It also helps me think more holistically about my wardrobe. I personally see it as an ecosystem where pieces are born, some die, they change, and they're all interconnected. They all have a relationship to one another. I see it as something that's alive and constantly evolving. Not to mention, making a color palette to me is just fun. It's my kind of fun. I sat down with my little sister and we made one for her, and that was just a good time. Now, it can be kind of hard to just sit down and be like, all right, what colors am I gonna let myself have in my closet? It can be really intimidating, overwhelming to think of. So the next part of this video is really just gonna be a step-by-step, how do you actually build a color palette? For making the actual palette itself, I like to use Canva, but Google Slides will work, PowerPoint will work. I'm pretty sure there are dozens of applications out there, probably hundreds of applications that can accomplish the same thing. But I'm going to show you using Canva. There is a free version of Canva where you should be able to do all of these steps without having to pay for anything. Now on Canva, I just made a bunch of circles and I lined them up. If you're interested in actually doing this, I would recommend starting that right now. Like pause the video, get something started that looks like this and fill it in as we move along, because by the end of the video, you should hopefully have a somewhat polished color palette just ready to go. The first thing to establish is the background color. For me, that was really easy. I wear a lot of off-white. It is definitely the foundation of my closet. So I decided to make my background reflect that. If you know right away that there is a color that is heavily represented in your wardrobe, go ahead and make that the background color. Lots of people wear almost exclusively black. Have that be the background. Maybe you wear denim with everything, make that the background. And if you're unsure, you can't really quite decide, then just go with a neutral gray, because having just a crisp white background can be a little bit intimidating, especially because you're probably not wearing crisp, bright white all that often. Don't overthink it. You can always change it later and go with your gut. When it comes to filling in the actual colors, I would say the first step is just to think about right away the easy ones. What colors do you wear that you always feel really good in? I know you have at least one color that has popped in your head. Most people have 2 to 4 colors. These are mine. Again, don't overthink it. You can always change it later. Next, I'm gonna go through the rainbow and list all the colors, and you're gonna think about what you do and do not like within that rainbow. As I list the colors, I would personally recommend that if you hear a color where you're like, oh yeah, blue, I do like wearing blue, don't put a million different blues in there. Just pick one, just quick one shade of blue. We will elaborate on it later, but for now, just that one blue. I know you know the colors of the rainbow. I'm going to list them anyways. We got red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, white, gray, black, and brown. At this point, I'd recommend lining up the colors on one side of the page because we're gonna think about tints, tones, and shades. For each color here, I would expand as much as you want and add more colors based on if you, like, we'll take the purple, for example. Do you like it to be lighter or darker? Do you want it to be more saturated or maybe more muted? Maybe you like a really bright, light purple and you like a really muted, dark purple. Stick both of those in there if you want. You can do this with as many or as few of the colors that you have on here as you want. Hopefully you have a fair amount of colors in here. A note that right now in the phase of making the color palette, we're in the phase of just throwing colors in there. We will edit it down later. But for now, we just want to put colors on the page that you like. Hopefully you have a fair amount of colors on there. And I would also recommend just going into your closet and looking at your favorite articles of clothing, one that you reach for all the time, even if you find it boring of like, oh, I wear this basically every day. Great. If that color is not on your palette, put it on your palette right now. And the last step that I didn't think about until recently, but I really like, is adding prints. If there is a specific print that you find you wear a lot of, throw that on there. Maybe you're really into a specific animal print. Toss the draft print in there. Do you really like gingham, stripes, polka dots, maybe a specific type of polka dot? I know I said we're just kind of tossing things in there, but I would be a little bit careful with the prints and keep it slightly more minimal and just do prints that you like a lot. I, for example, love a very thin white and blue stripe. So I'm putting that on there. It is a very specific pattern that I always love. I do like polka dots in some contexts, but I'm not a huge polka dot fan, and I don't think I literally own anything that has polka dots on it. So no, that's not going on my color palette. If you have decided to follow along, this is the part where we limit and edit. The first phase of that is going to be introducing the concept of color analysis. When I talk about color analysis here, I'm talking about, are you more warm toned, cool toned? Are you a summer or a winter, an autumn? This is way more art than science. I have had experts tell me I am warm toned. I have had some tell me I am cool toned, and I've had some tell me I'm neutral toned. So I think it's a little bit BS, but I do think it's a good jumping off point. In my gut, I feel like I'm a soft summer. I'm okay if that's not actually true because I like the color palette of soft summer and I do feel good in those colors. Even if they're not all my favorite, I do always feel good in those colors. If you're watching this, keep in mind I have warm lighting in my home exclusively and I color grade my videos, so I appear to have warmer toned skin than I actually have in real life. I would go on the internet, maybe Pinterest, and type in whatever you think you are. So for me, that's soft summer. I'm typing soft summer into Pinterest and I'm gonna see the color palettes that it pops up. It's okay if you wanna skip this step. And if you really are struggling and you're like, I have no idea what I am, what do you think you are? What does your gut tell you? And what do you hope you are? Like, what do you like? Maybe you're not in autumn, but you just love that color palette and you don't care. You're like, I could care less whether or not these look good on me. I love these colors and I want to wear them. Grab a color palette that you find of recommended colors and ideally one that also says colors that you probably should avoid and toss that onto your color palette and we're going to compare. This is totally optional, as is this entire thing, but I think it would be good to try and eliminate 2 to 3 colors on your palette, as many as you want, but 2 to 3 based on the information you're getting from this color palette. And if you want, potentially adjust some of the colors in your palette so that it reflects what's being shown in the recommended palette. Let's take green, for example, for me. I have always struggled with wearing green. I like the color green, but I've never liked the way that it looks on me. And I think that's because every time I've tried to wear green, I go for a very warm toned green and usually fairly saturated. But when I look at this, it's saying you should probably cool that green down a bit and kind of mute it, add some gray in there. I'm okay with letting go of the idea of wearing green in my closet. So I'm going to delete my bright green altogether because that's not a recommended color, is like a bright, more saturated green. And with the other one, I'm going to change it to that more cool tone green. And I'm going to play with that for a while in my closet and see if I find that it works. Slowly introducing it, of course. And it's important to not take these things too seriously. You can see on here that bright red is a no-go for colors for me. This is a healthy reminder to not take these things too seriously. I'm not supposed to wear bright cherry red. I love bright cherry red. I love the way I look in it. I love the way I feel in it. I'm keeping it on here. I don't care what this says. Okay, for the next step, we're going to toss out the color analysis. We don't need to come back to that. We're done with that. In my opinion, that's the most that these color analysis things should ever do for you. I think it should help you adjust your color palette and clothing in your wardrobe, but it should not be your North Star guiding light unless you're just really chill about that. We're going to think about what colors are you drawn to and really love, but for some reason, you just don't like the way they look on you, or you can't get it quite right. Like there's something off about it and you can't figure it out. Have you maybe been forcing a color in your wardrobe because you feel like you should wear it, or you genuinely like the color, but you just don't like how it looks on you? For me, that color is yellow. I love the color yellow, and I tried really hard to make it work in my closet, but no matter what, I just did not like the way that it looked on me. The color yellow should not be looking at me. Are colors sentient? If you have a color come to mind for you, I would go ahead and delete it from your palette. I personally intentionally decided to introduce a lot more yellow to my home and removed it from my closet. I never wore my yellow clothes, so I decided to donate or give them away, and instead I just have yellow influenced in my interior design frequently, so I can continually be surrounded by it and I can have it be a part of my life. I just don't have to wear it. Okay, the next editing step is a little bit difficult to do like emotionally, but for me, it was kind of the key step in making the color palette actually work. So the next step is seeing what colors do and do not work together. For example, on mine, you can see there are two different types of red. I have the 3 reds over here that do not look good with the other 3 reds, the like rusty palette versus the more cherry palette. To me, they clash and they don't look good together. I made the mistake several years ago of introducing both reds to my wardrobe. And the problem with that is my cherry red tops did not go with my rust red shorts. It really limited the combinations I could do with my outfit. And for me, versatility is really important when it comes to clothing in my wardrobe. So I made a conscious choice to say, I am not going to buy any more rust red clothing. I'm not going to get rid of everything rust red that I have, because some of it I really do like. I have this rusty red coppery satin dress that I'm not getting rid of because I really do love it. If I'm introducing new stuff to my closet, I'm choosing to not introduce more of that rusty red and instead going for the more cherry color tones. The purpose of this exercise is ensuring that every single color on my color palette goes with every other color on the palette. I don't know why, but for some reason, this tends to be the most difficult with the green girlies. And in that instance, I would personally recommend pick one to be reflected in your interior design and pick one to be reflected in your closet, because your clothing doesn't have to match your paintings on the wall. If you have a hard time knowing whether or not certain colors in your palette work together or not, I randomly arranged mine and saw that, yes, I do like all of these combinations. They do make sense. Even if I don't see myself wearing them, they do look good together in my opinion. But just to check, I tried rearranging them randomly again, and then I tried arranging them again. And every single iteration, I liked the combinations. The magic of it is if I keep following my color palette, every single article of clothing in my closet will go with every single other article of clothing in my closet. All of my tops will go with all of my bottoms. I want to avoid the conundrum of having that one shirt that I can only wear with those pants. In the long run, it's helped me to just work down my closet to smaller and smaller quantities of clothing because I can create so many more combinations, and it also allows more room to play. I can be more creative. I can mix and match more, knowing objectively these look good together color-wise, and I know they look good, so it's just a matter of if I like the way that they look on me. Now, if you're following along with making the color palette, this is the time where I would recommend just kind of decluttering it a little bit. We're just going to go ahead and delete some duplicate items. So I don't need to have on my color palette every single shade of blue. I know that I like one specific base of blue. And just as a personal reminder, I know, oh, I like the lighter version of that. I like the medium version of that. And I like the darker version of that. I don't need to have anything in between those. So if you have like 5 different shades of blue, go ahead and get rid of some of those. I'd personally recommend aiming to have your palette be between 9 and 20 colors. Anything more than that, it can be a bit overwhelming. The more tailored it is, the easier it will be for you to use. So now we have the actual colors in the palette, and it's just a matter of formatting, making it look pretty. For this, I just recommend playing around with it and arrange it in whatever way makes the most sense to you. For me, I like the traditional color palette where I just have my blobs and they're all the same size and arranged in a grid. But maybe you want to size your blobs based on how much of of that color you would like to be represented in your closet. Maybe you separate your core favorite colors from more trendy ones that you can see yourself switching out more frequently. That way you can have your established foundation, and then you can have a separate section of colors that you're okay just swapping out and maybe having a little bit less of in your closet. Or just know that you introduce these specific colors in the bottom row more slowly and in small ways instead of going all in. Everybody's colors are going to look different. So here is mine versus the one that me and my sister made for her versus the one that I made for my husband. He has a very limited color palette, and it actually makes shopping for him really easy. So yay, we have a color palette. I'd honestly recommend just saving it somewhere on your phone that you know you can look up later or access, or even physically print it out and like tape it in your closet. You don't even have to have it be visible. You can just tape it behind some clothes that are hung up right now. Just having it be accessible somewhere where you can reference it. I like having mine on my phone. I have it in my notes app and I have it labeled as color palette. That way on my phone, I can just literally look up color palette and it pulls it up for me. Yay, phones being smart. That way when I'm out and about or if I'm thrifting with a friend, I can pull it up and reference it right then and there. Okay, so now that we have our color palette, how does this relate to actually making clothes? Because at heart, this is a fiber arts channel. I didn't do this right off the get-go, but I've started over the past year making sure that when I'm buying yarn, or fabric for that matter, I'm sticking to my color palette. I like to knit, crochet, and sew wearable items. And so it just makes sense that I would make sure that the raw materials I'm buying support the color palette that I'm trying to introduce in my closet. Not to mention, I have proven to myself time and time again that when I buy or make things that do not fit into this palette, I don't like wearing them. I don't reach for them. It's subconscious even. It's not like me being really tough on myself of, oh, this doesn't fit my color palette, so I'm not going to wear it. It's just literally like, no, my color palette, I've already established and wrote down the colors that I like. So if it's not on here, I'm probably not going to wear it that much. Otherwise, I would put it on here. It also really helps with picking colors for color work. This is especially true if you're someone that likes doing scrappy projects. Like I love doing a good scrappy project. And an excellent example of this is I made 2 different scrappy knit sweaters. One I intentionally used my color palette for, and one I intentionally didn't use my color palette for as an experiment. Let's see if you can guess which one I actually wear. Yeah, so my scrappy sibling sweater totally aligns with my color palette and I wear it all the time and it goes with all my clothes. I love it. Always a win, and I get a lot of compliments when I'm wearing it. My Malaga sweater, on the other hand, I wanted to experiment. I wanted to see, maybe am I being a little bit too stringent with this color palette thing? Should I try like freeing myself from it? And made the sweater, and I had every intention of like, I hope I wear this. I hope I like it. I wasn't trying to set myself up for failure, but I finished it and immediately knew this has no place in my closet. This isn't going to go with a lot in my wardrobe. I'm not going to get a lot of use out of this. I would rather just give this to someone else. I also went through my previous knit projects and I ranked which ones were my favorite versus which ones were my least favorite based on how often I choose to wear them. And I was honestly shocked. Almost all the sweaters that are my favorites all fall within my color palette, and almost all of them that are not my favorites fall outside of my color palette. I didn't think it had that strong of an influence on me, but apparently it does. I thought the yarn choice was going to be the biggest thing, but I found that I'm willing to wear a slightly itchier sweater if it's in a color that I love, compared to if I made a softer sweater, I'm not going to wear it, even if it's in a yarn that I absolutely adore the feeling of. I've also found that it really helps minimizing decision fatigue without having to pull a Steve Jobs. And on top of that, I firmly believe that limitations breed creativity. And I have a clip of me explaining it better than I could explain it right now. I love limitations. It's something that no one wants to have, but it's so crucial to the creative process. For one, I really like drawing. I'm not the best at it, but I'm above average. But I was struggling so much with drawing because I bought these like huge sets of markers and colored pencils and all the supplies. And I ended up paring it down to just 4 markers, 4 pens that are the same color as the markers. And I've had way more fun drawing now that I have the limitations, and I don't need to sit there and nitpick which color am I going to use. And it's allowed me to be a lot more creative with the way that I use color. We are not done yet. I want to get into color combinations because having a color palette is great for knowing what to and to not introduce into your closet, both in terms of clothing and also raw materials if you're a crafty person like me. But it doesn't necessarily help you so much with what to do and how to style the clothing that you already own. because I really don't like when people get rid of all of their clothing, completely overhaul their wardrobe, and start from scratch. I have almost never seen that work out for somebody. The first question to ask yourself is, do you like a lot of color going on in an outfit, or do you like more monochromatic looks? To help you figure this out, I would recommend looking up color blocking on Pinterest, and that will sort of show you how many colors in an outfit is too many for you, or not enough. I personally found that I love monochromatic outfits. They are my absolute favorite. I always feel good when I'm wearing a monochromatic outfit. Look at what I'm wearing right now. And I'm going to put a cream colored cardigan on over this because I'm a little chilly. Oh, and Pippin's here for me. She's not here for you. She's my support. Back to the number of colors in an outfit. I just want to go through a couple different examples so that maybe you can get a sort of jumping off point and knowing if you like more or less colors going on. So here are outfits where you have one color going on, that monochromatic look that I love so much. 2 colors, which is fun to play with. 3 colors. This is where you have to start being really mindful of your color combinations. And 4 colors, which tends to be my max. And then just as an example, I'll also show you what it looks like when you have 5 or more colors going on in an outfit and you're leaning more into that maximalist style. Now, for actually deciding on the color combinations you want to do, we're going to go back to Art 101. There are lots of ways to do color combinations from a technical perspective, but the most common options is to go with complementary, where you have colors on opposite ends of the color wheel. Then there's split complementary, which is exactly what it sounds like. There's analogous, which is so fun, where you have the colors next to each other on the color wheel. And there's triadic, where you have a perfect triangle and you can just rotate that and see what 3 colors to pair together. If I apply these concepts to my own color palette, these are some of the different color combination options I came up with, which I personally hadn't thought about before. So this was an incredibly helpful exercise for me. And then also something I really like is when you have neutrals with a pop of color. For example, I wear this outfit all the time. I'm going to go hang out with a friend later and I'm going to take off these sweatpants and change into another pair of pants that look basically identical but are linen. And looking at this outfit, I think I'm going to add my blue purse. Like I have a blue purse that would just be a really fun pop of color. In the context of knitting and crochet, if you've never heard of it, there is a knitting book called, I think it's Neons and Neutrals or Neutrals and Neons. I think it's Neons and Neutrals. But the designer in there very expertly captures this concept. And while we're at it, going back to Art 101, I think it's also a good time to talk about tints, tones, and shades. This is why I like to have a more limited condensed color palette, because I know I can always play around with the tints, tones, and shades of any single color in here, treating it like a base color and knowing no matter how I mess around with it, it's still going to make sense with all the other colors. So just to review, a tint is when you add white to a color, a shade is when you add black, and a tone is when you add gray. Now, taking this in the context of, let's say, the triadic combo that I came up with earlier, using the colors within my palette, if I mess around with the tints, tones, and shades, I can get really different vibes. I can turn that really bright cherry red into a pink just by adding white, and then you get an incredibly different vibe. I can turn that blue into a navy blue. I can make that yellow darker or more saturated. It's still the same base yellow, which is why it works. All of these concepts, it's Art 101, so you can apply this to any art form, including like styling yourself and interior design if you're someone that really struggles with color combinations. All right, moving on to tips. This is like important information that I didn't know where to stick anywhere else in the video, so I just want to make sure that it gets said. First is to acknowledge that colors can be trendy. Colors go in and out of style, and we can use that to our advantage. I like to use it as an opportunity to consider a color that maybe I haven't considered before. Maybe you know you would look good in yellow, but you haven't quite found the right yellow, and then the butter yellow trend made you realize, oh, maybe this yellow is the one that I've been looking for. This is the one that would work. I just never saw it before. But I would warn you to start small. If you're introducing a new color into your closet that isn't really represented in your closet already, start small. For me, that was leopard print. It was not something I paid much attention to in the past, but it was trending and I just saw it online a lot to the point where I'm like, okay, I think I kind of like this. And immediately I wanted to buy a dress or a skirt or pants or something big in leopard print so I could participate in this trend, not for the sake of being trendy, but just in the sake of I'm seeing this a lot. I really like it and I really want to wear something that has leopard print on it and I want to go big. But I forced myself to have a little bit of self-control. And instead, I just bought leopard print scrunchies. And it turns out this completely satiated that desire. Now, I'm not against buying anything in the future that has leopard print in it, but this was enough for me to not feel like, oh, I really need to buy something. It scratched that itch for me. And no, I do not distinguish between cheetah and leopard print. A more influential example of this would be that bright cherry red color that I talk about all the time that I really love. It started popping up everywhere. About 5 years ago, it was really trendy, especially in the knitting world. But before I decided to dive in and get a full-on garment, I knit a scrunchie. And I wore it all the time and loved it. So I knit a pair of socks. And then I sewed a swimsuit in that color. And I made a bag. And after I'd introduced enough little pieces, it still wasn't scratching that itch. I loved it so much. And I'm really glad I started by just introducing small items into my closet in various arenas. So not just buying a bunch of red tops, so my outfits can be more matchy-matchy. And after I proved to myself, okay, I really do like this color and I'm in for the long haul, this year I finally found that linen skirt that I was talking about earlier that was available in that cherry red color and bought it. And I absolutely love it. And it goes with so much in my closet because I already have a ton of accessories in that same exact color. There is a significant benefit to starting small when introducing new colors to your closet. First and foremost is preventing buyer's remorse. Less of a tip, more of a reminder is that you should always allow for flexibility. You're a human being. I'm a human being. I'm going to change over time. It would be pretty boring if I didn't. I imagine the colors I like are going to continue changing in the future. You're allowed to change your favorite color, by the way. In case no one's told you that, just because you said when you were 6 years old that your favorite color is blue doesn't mean that needs to be your personality for the rest of your life, unless you want it to be. And lastly, just understand that whatever feels natural is probably right. I've heard many times something to the effect of, ugh, I only ever like to wear green, but I feel like I should branch out. Do you like wearing green? Yeah. Are you harming anybody by primarily wearing green? No. Then wear green. Or don't. I think it's such a gift to know with any amount of certainty what you do and don't like. Embrace that gift and learn to trust yourself. So if you really like a certain color, don't feel like you should or should not be wearing that color. That's ridiculous. See you in the next episode. You're so cute. Have I told you that a billion times yet today? I'm so sorry if I haven't.